I'm Hedwig Theeuwissen, also known as the Fake History Hunter. Let's debunk one of history's many myths. Did medieval people share homes with their cattle? On social media, I hunt for people who spread fake history. Some of the posts I find claim that medieval peasants shared their homes with free roaming cattle. I wasn't so sure about that. So I decided to research this subject so I could, if need be, correct those tweets, Facebook posts, etc. I tried to mostly use online sources so that those who I responded to could easily look what I found up themselves. The claim usually comes up in discussions about how dirty and backwards medieval Europeans were, and that it's no wonder that they got all those diseases, were always covered in filth, and so on. The images that some people share show indeed cattle in hovels apparently free to go wherever they want. Let's first try and understand it by looking at it logically and reasonably. Would you like to have big stinky pooping peeing animals walking around your home? Do you think medieval people didn't mind having feces and urine splattered all over their precious belongings, their clothing, their bedding, their food, their children, or their walls? I live in the countryside. I leave my doors open when the weather allows it, and the chickens love to visit. But I have trained my dog to bark and chase them out every time they do. I like chickens visiting me in my home, but I don't like cleaning their feces afterwards. This is a lesson you learn very easily. Washing blankets, clothing, floors and furniture is not fun. But for us, with all our modern appliances, it's also not that much effort. But for a medieval peasant, these jobs would have taken a lot more time and would have been a lot more work. Time better used elsewhere. So the mess animals leave behind would have been a lot more annoying and bothersome for them than it would be for us, and we still don't like it. Besides it being dirty, sharing a home with animals is also dangerous. They can bump into stuff, accidentally push something or someone into the open fire. They steal your food or, they can eat your child's face off. Yeah, we know pigs actually did that sometimes. You can read more about that in this wonderful book about medieval pigs by Dolly Jurgensen. Next, we need to try and look at the evidence. Is there any proof of free-roaming indoor cattle being a thing during the Middle Ages? So far, I've only found 2 contemporary images showing animals sharing a roof with humans, and in both, the animals seem to have their own door and thus likely their own part of the house. Sharing a roof is of course smart. It means you don't have to build a separate building just for the animals, which is expensive, a lot of work, it takes up precious land and so on. But animals also provide warmth. And inside they're safe from thieves, predators and the elements. You don't want your only cow to get sick because it's been out in the cold all night, do you? Of course, if you had the space, time and money, you'd just build a stable like in this lovely drawing by Jenny Anderson of a 14th century farmstead at Eckwyck in Somerset in the UK. But we know that many people did indeed share a roof with their cattle, and some still do. In my country, the Netherlands, it was relatively common until not that long ago. But as you can see here in this photo, the actual barn bit is separated from the home. You can even see it from outside. Without records or art, the only way to prove how things were in the past is by looking at the archaeology of these buildings. And let's start a bit before the Middle Ages. According to the International Association of Archaeological Open-Air Museums, separating living spaces from animal spaces started in the Middle Bronze Age. In the new Stone Age houses, there are no indications for stables. During the Middle Bronze Age, between 1800 and 1600 BC, a farm type in which both people and cattle lived under one roof became the common type of dwelling. From this period onwards, a clear division of the houses in 2 parts is to be recognized. The traces of stable boxes, the location of the fireplace, the entrances and division walls make clear that one part of the house was in use as a stable and the other part was meant as living quarters for the people. For my research, the book The Village and House in the Middle Ages by Jean Chapelot was quite helpful. There's evidence in medieval hovels that show that they too indeed divide their homes. There's a technical term for these types of houses, as Mr. Chapelot explains. The term mixed house should be reserved for those buildings that provide shelter under the same roof and at opposite ends of the building for human beings and livestock respectively. A remaining problem is, of course, that although the archaeological evidence of a feeding trough or a drainage system can tell us where the animals lived, it's still often difficult or even impossible to say how high these partitions were and what they looked like, and if there was no evidence in the ground for a partition at all, if they perhaps used something else like curtains or a railing or a piece of rope just to keep the animals in place. Archaeology can also not tell us if the animals were perhaps tied up. This is Higher Uppercot, a Dartmoor longhouse with early mid-14th century origins where the lower end chippon remains intact. You can clearly see the drain in the middle, which would have made getting rid of waste a lot easier. I've linked to an interesting talk about Higher Uppercot. You can find that in the description. I've been sharing a whole bunch of illustrations I found online that show us what medieval houses look like on the inside. I think that most of these are more authentic than the one I started this video with. They show that yes, indeed, many people shared their roofs with their cattle, but generally they didn't share their living spaces. Finally, I just wanted to mention the Roman Peasant Project 2009-2014. It mentions evidence of peasants sharing their homes with cattle in Roman times. So once more, something that's often used to make medieval people appear dirty and backwards was actually something that Romans did as well. To conclude, yes, medieval and lots of other people shared their homes with livestock, but not their living spaces. The image of the Middle Ages of being filthy and backwards is a stubborn one to get rid of, but thanks to proper research and archaeology, it seems that our medieval ancestors didn't like cattle stamping all over their house, defecating on everything and eating their babies. Who would have thought? Thank you, Baike. I agree. For sources, check the description on YouTube.